Okay.
Go ahead and pick a topic out of the bag.
I'm not looking. Oh, my favorite. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, I love this question. Okay. So the question is, what makes a great franchise leadership team? Is it about following systems, innovation, or people management? Or it could be something else, but some thought starters.
Wow. Okay. So I'm going to go way back to my employment relations days. And you're going to love my one-line answer on this. It's diversity, right? Singularity gets you in a singular place. Diversity helps you expand out and grow. I mean, by nature of the word, right? So I'll always say first word is diversity.
Mm. It's interesting that you use diversity to answer that question because I wasn't expecting that. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you mean by diversity? I think there's a lot of definitions about what that is out there. So I'd love to hear your perspective on it and how it relates to franchising.
Okay, so there's a saying that never hire similar to me. Because if you hire similar to me, you're going to get the same thing. You hire diversely so you can be diverse. You can be agile. You can have different thoughts, those types of things. And with that, you can problem solve. If you're always hiring similar to me, right? And there's a lot of ways we can take that, right? Whether it's education, whether it's culture, whether it's, experience, you're going to get the same thing over and over again if you say, this is a perfect fit because they have the exact same thing.
Oh, don't get me started on cultural fit and what that even means.
Right. But I mean, that's a different thing, but that's part of diversity. And when I say that, I mean that as well.
Yeah.
And I mean that more so because you get ingrained with a certain mindset and take that for what it means, right? You get ingrained with a certain mindset of doing things a certain way. If you always do things a certain way, you will never be agile. You continue to run a certain way. And this is where you have, I'm going to use the Blockbuster analogies
Great example. Yeah.
Where they believed that Netflix will never outsell them because people just pick up videotapes from the store and they return it, and that streaming will never be able to, fill that void.
Okay, pause for a second before we go down the loop of where that brand went wrong or where they could have made a different choice. Let's talk about Blockbuster for a second, because we probably have some viewers here who have never been to a Blockbuster, just have probably heard it in passing. I'll tell you about my experience with Blockbuster and really the connection I had to that brand. I remember Blockbuster being the place to go to on a Friday night to catch a hot movie, pack the siblings up, or even if it's a date night situation where you walk in, you have all these different genres of movies. You got the comedies, you got the horrors, you got, the vintage stuff over here. And you walk the aisles and you take a look at what's new and you pick something off the shelf and you go over here and you get some snacks. Yep, Blockbuster had snacks too. And, you feel a part of the experience. You talk to people about their recommendations. You read the back of a of a DVD or a Blu-ray and you get the synopsis of a movie maybe you never heard. There might be a section of staff picks or what people recommend. And so it really was not just a movie thing or a place to get movies. It was an experience. Right. And a lot of my core memories growing up as a big sis of about 6 or 7 siblings was packing everybody up in the car, taking a drive over to Blockbuster, renting a few movies, heading back home, and honestly making more than a night about it. It'd be a night and the next day too, Right. Yeah, a great experience. And, a part of me wishes Blockbuster was still around, nowadays, but we're in the era of Netflix. And you can, I guess, tell us a little bit about how we got here.
Right. So I use that example to say that the world is changing. And if
Yeah.
you're not agile, like Blockbuster thought they will always be top dog, and they never believed that streaming would evolve the way it was, and they weren't agile. Now take it forward to a more relevant, or a more timely example, Zoom.
Mm.
Whoever thought Zoom would have blown up from person to person meetings and all these online meetings and those types of things. So
Mm.
just the evolving space. But
Yeah.
again, it's agile minds within these companies saying, these are ways we can evolve. These are ways we can do things, right? So having that singular focus can literally kill a brand is what I'm
Yeah.
getting at if you're not agile. And that comes from hiring the same people who keep telling you, people will always want to pick up videos from our store or do things, meet in person and these types of things, and not having that, um, agile leadership to
Mm.
speaking to the question to say, no, innovation is coming. And I know, the big talk is the next one, AI.
Yeah.
Well, if you ignore AI, what do you think is going to happen with your brand? These examples that I've brought up. If you're ignoring AI and you're not staring into it, what will happen? You see a lot of these brands developing and changing very quickly. Another example would be Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Now Meta. Why? Because
Mm-hmm.
they're already looking down the road and saying, we need to be agile with this, or we will, like, even though they're Facebook, we will die.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is where I'm saying about, don't hire similar to me.
Mm-hmm.
Diversity, diversity, diversity in many forms is what
Mm-hmm.
is needed in,
Yeah.
a successful leadership.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you touched on a couple of different examples outside of the franchising space, which I think is
Mhm.
great
Mhm.
to add context to the conversation. But I'd like to kind of bring it back a little bit to your point on diversity and how that has an impact on the franchising industry today. We spoke a little bit earlier about the franchisee population and how that's really changing and shifting and how it's made a massive shift over the last, 5-10 years. And something I think we don't always look at is how not having a diverse franchisee population can have a negative impact on a brand or a brand's ability to expand. Do you have any thoughts about specifically how diversity is approached with onboarding new franchise partners?
Yes, definitely diversity is needed. And I'll preface that by saying within the client avatar that fits the business model.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, getting locked in a certain thing is not always good,
Mm-hmm.
but knowing who's going to be successful within that mindset. So, one of the things I see biggest is within franchise systems, those systems that need a sales mindset from their franchisee, and they onboard somebody who does not have that sales mindset, then you're going to have a problem, right? Diversity.
Now, no, I want to stop you there for a second because you said we're going to have a problem. And there are some skills that I believe can be taught, right?
Yes.
We have a lot of franchise owners who buy a car dealership style franchise who don't know much about cars. Does that mean that they can't be successful? Can someone who isn't a trained esthetician buy or own a spa or a beauty franchise without necessarily going through that formal training?
My answer to that is there are two different things. So somebody learning service is one thing. What I'm specifically talking to is stuff that is like sales B2B, where you have to connect with other businesses to be successful. You have to be doing a lot of outreach. So that's a different mindset. So when we talk diversity in that way, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know where you're getting at
Yeah.
is you're talking cultural diversity.
Mm-hmm.
And again, cultural diversity,
Experience. Mm-hmm.
right? In that space, again, it has to fit the client avatar for the brand.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I'm looking how it fits,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. I'm going to toss this to the side because I know we're going to be wrapping up soon,
Right.
but I'm going to toss a curveball at you.
Okay.
Can someone who is from a Caribbean background
All right.
open up or purchase a franchise that serves Asian cuisine?
Absolutely.
Okay. But it's not a direct cultural fit. So
no, when we say cultural fit,
Yeah.
I'm talking about two different things.
Okay, yeah. Let's
right?
clarify it for people. Let's clarify
Right.
it for
Cultural
people.
fit, there's one with brand culture, brand standards, and those types of things. And the other is service offering.
Mhm.
So where you're saying, I guess, is the disconnect between service offering, about a Caribbean offering and Asian offering to the public. That can be done because it's a service model. Now, there's other demographics that will say, will that work or not work in different areas, different communities, obviously. But in general, I would say no. It's not a problem to have a person of a different cultural background to have an offering that may not be a fit if it's service.
Just because it's not the same doesn't mean it's not a fit.
Correct.
Right?
Right?
Yeah.
But again, I will always preface, there's so many other dynamics that go into that
yeah.
to say whether it's a fit or not a fit. For me, okay, so for me, I'm going to use my word of the day. Cultural is negligible in that type of thing because there's so many other boxes that need to be checked before you grant somebody a franchise partnership.
Okay, so if we're steering the conversation back to the leadership piece and what skills are needed to help navigate, I guess, building an inclusive environment, an inclusive brand that celebrates the diversity that we've been talking about, what would be one or two things that franchisors can do to help bridge that gap and create those environments and more inclusive brands, and maybe something that franchisees can also do to contribute positively?
Yeah, I would want to say that for leadership, I would want to be successful in all communities, right? Meaning you're not looking, again, to be similar to certain communities. If you're really looking to expand and have diversity in different cultures, you're going to look at that and see where the fits are and where the check boxes are to be able to develop your brand in that way and say, yeah, we're diverse. We're serving A community, B community, rural, urban, those types of things. And you're going to really be agile in that. And, that goes again back to me saying having agile leadership, not just saying, oh, it's always worked in, let's say, rural communities. It'll never work in urban or vice versa. So that's where I'm really looking at to say, yeah, let's be agile with this. Let's serve all communities. And then we really get a diversity from cultural background and cultural from the system itself.
Brand culture, right?
Yeah,
the brand culture.
Itself.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think leaders can do a better job connecting with their local communities that they serve. And that can be through the relationship with the franchise partner who is owning, operating, serving in that community. That is making sure that there is that feedback channel to say, hey, this is working well in my market. This, maybe we can look at adapting something to make it more effective or successful in my market, and just being open to having those conversations and shifting your mindset to exploring the local communities and being intentional with those efforts, I think is key.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, for leadership, you want to have to develop that.
Yeah.
Right? Because a lot of
curiosity. Be curious.
No, but a lot of leaders, I mean, in the franchise world, and I guess it's human nature, you want to do the things that made you successful, right? So bringing in new innovative leaders to say, hey, no, it can work in this way, in this market.
Have you looked at it this way?
Right.
Right? This is the experience I've had with this, or I've seen this work in a similar model or a similar situation. Just bringing that fresh set of eyes and perspective to the conversation.
Right. And I don't know if you know, that's actually one of the things I did, right, is looking at those different markets demographically to say, hey, let's look at this market and plant somewhere we haven't planted before. I would get a lot of pull and feedback of, yes, we can go here, no, we can't. But it was for me to make the case to say, no, we need to be here. even though we haven't been in this space before. So, I mean, that's the type of thing you need to be agile. Is like,
yeah. And I love that you bring in the data and then look at the financials and you look at the numbers and you look at the data that's available, the hard numbers.
Right.
But I also think it's important to look at the qualitative data, the conversations, the community connection, how franchise partners are showing up in their local markets to make it happen for the brand.
Absolutely.
Yeah. This has been honestly like such a great conversation. We could probably talk for another 20 minutes on this topic on franchise leadership and why it's so important and core to brand success.
Yeah.